Welcome into a sad Locked On Lions squad show, the post-game edition. Jake Riepma alongside Bradford Banta. No Natalie Kerwin to help us get through this one. Lions fall to the Steelers 29-24. Bradford Banta. We've got a lot to discuss.
Bradford Banta here, 22-year NFL veteran. The playoffs are looking very, very slim.
One pride. It's the Lions Squad. Everything Detroit Lions every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Motor City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From the roar of the Lions to the next great chapter, the Lions Squad Show starts now.
Oh, the instant post-game reaction on the number one sports podcast platform, the Locked On Podcast Network. Jake Riepma, Bradford Banta. We got our sadness out. We played the intro. It's time to let it ride. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. We might have to work backwards on this one, starting with the wild play to finish at Ford Field, the offensive pass interference. And really, as we continue to work backwards, we'll talk about that abysmal third quarter, some of the defensive miscues, some of the offensive woes. And really, you could make the case that the Lions didn't even deserve an opportunity to be in that game at Bradford Banta. But I always begin with the invitation to get in on the action. That's the beautiful thing about the instant post-game live reaction. Send your comments in. Already a million to get to. We'll work in the best ones we can in this opening segment before we really start chopping it up. But Bradford Banta, man, what a wild ending at Ford Field. And of course, it's Aaron Rodgers on the other side and smirking post-game. And I had a lot of memories at this stadium. Brutal.
My man worked himself to a 13-3 record at Ford Field, to my best recollection. I did a little bit of research during the game, and he's 13-3 at Ford Field. So he came here. He is victorious once again. Man, we just it seems to be an ongoing theme for this defense is that they just can't get off the field, and it showed tonight. It was amazing that Detroit even stayed in the game or had a chance at the end of the game to come out with a victory.
Yeah.
After everything that went on tonight, I was totally astonished whenever I looked up with 30 seconds left to play. If we scored a touchdown, we would have won the game. And if you would have looked,
had one taken off the board. It was, it was a clear.
I know.
Pass interference. The offensive pass interference dooms the Lions down the stretch. And I always love your take on officiating, having worked with NFL referees and can take us inside what those huddles sound like better than anybody else. The Tesla one initially, unfortunately, I think it was the right call, and the St. Brown one, unfortunately, the right call as well. But then to lateral it back to Goff, I mean, Tony Romo even said, I don't even know what to say. That's kind of how I felt watching it. But your thoughts, I mean, if you're advising the officials there, unfortunately, it might not be the popular opinion on this instant reaction show, but I do think they got it right.
No, they got it right, and it's the right call, because if it's an offensive penalty with the clock going to triple zeros, then game over. Even if there's a touchdown scored, the points are taken off the board, and there's no repeat of the play. That is in the rule book, and you know what? The referees, you leave the field, because they said at the end of the game, all the players were sitting there, all the Lion players were sitting there watching the replay board, watching the play over and over and over again. It's game over. I hate to say it, but that's the facts, and that's the reality of what was presented to us tonight.
Yeah, I made note watching that game late in the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. Third quarter, we thought last weekend's third quarter was bad. I mean, this was abysmal to the tune, maybe an NFL record of 3 plays and giving up 2 points in the form of a safety. But I had the word, and I'm reading X, I'm reading the Twitter, and everybody, it's an avalanche effect where everybody's pouring on, but it felt like the lowest time in the Dan Campbell era. I mean, maybe you omit that first season given the struggles and the rebuilding that needed to be done, but certainly the boos coming down from Ford Field, just the zero direction identity of this offense, getting bullied in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Warren, a couple of long touchdown runs for the Steelers. I had just that sick feeling of, oh my goodness, this is the lowest moment in recent time watching Detroit Lions football. So here's a little spin on it, some resiliency to at least get back in the game that you can point to and attribute to that culture of never giving up. And I'm not saying moral victories by any means, but I had that distinct thought of lowest moment in Dan Campbell era, late in that third quarter into the early fourth quarter.
No, I mean, for us to be in this game after what took place basically for the first three quarters, I was totally astonished. And it is amazing that we were in the game and had a chance to win the game because, like you said, we had 3 plays in the third quarter. And one of those plays, we gave Pittsburgh Steelers 2 points. So it was just, they controlled the ball. They kept it out of our hands. They made this a very ugly game, talking about the Steelers. And that was probably the plan going into the game, was just make this an ugly game. And they succeeded. They succeeded very, very well. And they were able to wear the defense out and able to break a couple of 45-yard touchdown runs by Warren. And it you can't say that's the straw that broke the camel's back, because we were in it at the end. And it took, God, there's so many plays that happened. I'm talking about this weekend around the NFL, not just in the Detroit Lions game, but just around the NFL. We're talking about the 2-point play that Zach Charbonnet picked up for the Seattle Seahawks, for 2 points to beat the Rams. And then you go down to this OPI. I mean, there's so many plays that you can put on film and then turn it into a teaching tape that you can show your team, hey, this is what we have to do. This is how we have to respond. There's so much good stuff that you can learn from. And unfortunately, it came at the expense of the Detroit Lions today from talking about that offensive pass interference.
Yep. And if you're just joining the live conversation right now, just a reminder, you can always get the audio form of today's show on the Locked On Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcast. But I also wanted to not just break the ice with that, but also include that, for the comments that are saying I'm, making stuff up to feel better. I feel terrible about where this Lions team is. I want to get that very, very clear. And in particular, I think the most damning and resonating thing with me is the 180 reversal of what this team was built on for so long, now just being the complete weakness and Achilles heel, that being the offensive line play, and even defensively not maintaining integrity in the run lanes. And I know they're banged up, I understand all of that, but the next guy up mentality has to be a point that you look to with this team, and it just was not there tonight against the Steelers.
No, it wasn't there. You're looking, oh gosh, I mean, how far down the rungs are you looking at the safety position? We're talking 3, 4 down the rungs. I mean, because you had both your starting safeties are out, both of them are in injured reserve, and then let's see, we had a couple other guys go out, and I'm just talking about the progression through the season to get to this point right now. And I know Romo made a big point about the run fit whenever Warren broke I believe it was the first 45-yard touchdown run. Mm-hmm. But it's, those are the facts. And I think if you go back, and I it's been a concern of mine throughout the season. Yes, Muhammad has done a good job, and he has the sacks, to back up his production, but they're still double and triple teaming Aiden, and it continues to hurt this defense in the long run. And I was watching Marcus Davenport get down in a 3-point stance sometimes, and he looked like he was lined up as like a tight end.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we doing? I'm like, you're better off in a 2-point stance if you're going to line up like that. Because if you get in a stance with the way he was lined up, I mean, his feet were parallel to each other and he had his hand down on the ground. Instead of getting in that traditional defensive end 40-yard track stance type start to get a good push off the line, it looked to me like he was just trying to two gap. Well, buddy, I hate to tell you, that's not why we're paying you. We're paying you to rush the passer. So you got to get in there and you got to go make some hay by getting to the quarterback. Now, scheme-wise, they may have been asking him to do something else, but it just didn't help the other three that were trying to get to the quarterback because you were just stuck at the line of scrimmage. But it's been, you know, it was a frustrating game to watch in a sense that, you know, I was looking at it. I just took a note and we were talking about like just into half. You know, I made a note. Defense had to get off the field. Now, they got that touchdown that Gainwell had, which, look, I mean, players are players. And that kid made a play. And it was smart of him to get up and run into the end zone. It was a fantastic job by him. We weren't able to.
I want to go to that end of the play or end of the half play because there was it seemed like a concerted effort to play a lot more zone coverage. In particular, that play, you got Anzalone matched up on Gainwell as a linebacker on a running back. And obviously it's going to depend on the skill set of the linebacker and the running back. But in general, you know, it's sometimes in man coverage like that will favor the offensive player. Now, Anzalone, a very good cover linebacker. I think some of his, you know, advanced metrics are some of the best in the league. But what do you think just defensively, schematically being in man coverage there? And I'm not playing devil's advocate. I just think it's an interesting discussion down with that juncture of the first half, 10 seconds left, where it felt like they were creeping into field goal range, almost like a bend don't break if you're the defense. But in man coverage, you put Anzalone in a compromising position like that.
I don't know. I don't think it's as much a compromising position. I just think he played it the best he could because Alex has shown throughout the year that he can cover backs and he can cover the slot wide receiver because that's one of the reasons why the Detroit Lions play with three linebackers because that gives them the ability to play in base and you don't have to have that nickel back in the game. You can use Barnes to rush the passer. You can use Anzalone or even Campbell. And, you know, they generally don't put Campbell in those type of situations. And I'm talking about covering man to man. You know, they will put him in a spy type position to look at the quarterback and just kind of judge his eyes. But the number one cover linebacker that they have is Alex Anzalone. And to his credit, he does a good job. It's just they got the better of him on that play. Generally, he does a fantastic job.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it's magnified by, I don't want to say a fluke play because Gainwell is known as a very good possession receiver out of the running back position. But I mean, he's laying on the ground when he makes that catch. But it's one more thing to chalk up that this game literally had it all. And before that last drive, you know, we're thinking of opening with, oh my goodness, DK Metcalf punched a fan, and we're 13 minutes into this.
I know.
And we haven't even gotten into that, but and I saw a lot of discourse about it online of how, you know, the NFL needs to step in and get him out of the game. I honestly don't know the protocol there. I saw one source saying, hey, it wasn't called a penalty, so it's not like they can call in and review it or something of that nature. But obviously DK is going to face some serious disciplinary action from the NFL. I
mean, you're taking a swing at a fan.
Yeah, brutal.
That is a serious no. It doesn't matter, you know, what kind of no, it doesn't matter what kind of verbal abuse that the fan is trying to put on you. I don't know if there's any audio of what took place. All I know is what I read. And I read that the fan had some kind of number 4 T-shirt that he was waving around, and Metcalf went over there, which is a big no-no. And that's where team security, stadium security,
I mean, even his
player
teammates like step in, like save DK from himself.
Yeah, because look, his past history. Okay, hey, you can call it what it is. He's kind of a diva, but he is a hard player. He plays hard, and but that got in his head for the next series. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, because I think he had I know he had 2, but maybe even 3 straight drops in the next series, and you didn't know if it was going to affect him the rest of the game, but it didn't. He ended up making some plays for him, but for him to actually swing at a fan, you're looking at a definite fine and possible suspension, and that's going to come down very quickly from the league. We'll probably find out, I'd say by Wednesday, what's going to happen, and inevitably, I would say Tuesday if I was a betting man.
And if there's a suspension looming, that's huge for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are obviously in a much better playoff position than the Detroit Lions after today. I did want to jump in and end this first segment with the not me being optimistic, not being, fanboy here trying to cat of 9 lives. We're not dead yet. I'm not saying that. This is just the old playoff picture, not mathematically eliminated. Here's what needs to happen. The Lions obviously need to win their next 2 games, and then they're going to need some help with the 49ers beating the Bears, and then obviously the Lions playing the Bears in their last game. You would need a win there, and then you'd need the Packers to lose to either the Ravens or the Vikings. So going to need some help. You don't control your own destiny. And again, this is I want everybody in those comments to know I'm not selling hope. We're informing, as we do on the Locked On Lions squad show, after a really tough loss at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 29-24. Let's keep it rolling on this live edition of the Locked On Lions squad show. We'll mix in some comments. We'll talk about the offense and all the struggles that they had. Jahmyr Gibbs limited, Jared Goff at times looking flustered and giving up points on the safety. All recipes for disaster on the offensive side. That's next on the Locked On Lions post-game edition. Jake Riepma and Bradford Banta. This episode of the Locked On Lions Squad Show is brought to you by our good friends, the Car Gurus. Listen, I've talked about the Car Gurus before, but you still need to listen up. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing. And with the Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want. Because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal. And Car Gurus make that whole process simple by giving you real information, real dealer ratings, and so much more listings than anyone else, so you can shop the way you want to. Use Car Gurus deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. The work's done for you. You'll love being able to filter by everything: mileage, trim, features, so you're only seeing the cars that actually fit what you need. And the price drop alerts are a lifesaver. You get notified the second a car you're watching becomes an even better deal. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any major online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com. cargurus.com. Lions fall to the Steelers. Jake Riepma and Bradford Banta breaking it all down on the #1 sports podcast platform, the Locked On Podcast Network. Bradford, that offense looked as bad as I think it ever has. And maybe this is prisoner of the moment. You can accuse me of doing that pretty regularly when it comes to the Lions, but I might have a case with this. That third quarter, let's start there, because it was just a tough product to watch.
Jake, you want to talk offense and you want to talk third quarter.
It won't take long.
Okay, then let's move on. I mean, they gave up a safety. It was 3 plays. That's it. So, I mean, just be realistic. It was a bad showing in the third quarter, and they gave up a safety. They gave the Pittsburgh Steelers 2 points there, and it ended up being, 10-12 at the end of the third quarter because Pittsburgh held the ball for, 14 minutes. Basically.
Yeah, Lions had less than 1 minute of possession. That field goal drive took over 10 minutes for the Steelers.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy. Just counting it up here, it looks like the Lions had 9 drives or 10 drives, excuse me. And the offense didn't start coming to life until drives 9 and 10. And that's whenever they started moving the ball. Maybe the 8th drive that they had, the touchdown with Khalif Raymond, it kind of opened up a little bit there. They started using players that they don't normally use. And that was kind of the key to the success because the Pittsburgh Steelers, it looked like their defensive game plan going into the game was one of, hey, let's take Gibbs out. Let's take Amon-Ra out. And, J-Mo will get his. But I think we can live with it as long as we don't give up the chunk plays to him. But we can be physical with him. And I think Pittsburgh, for the most part, executed that defensive game plan very well. It kept them in the game. And Pittsburgh was just nickel and diamond on offense, just holding on to the ball and keeping our offense off the field. I mean, our defensive players, even though the defense, didn't play that great, they were gassed.
Yeah.
And I was amazed during the game that on that 8th, 9th drive, they were talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Defensive players were gassed after that drive. And I'm like, what are we talking about here? There's no point in talking about that. They're coming over, they're sucking on the oxygen, they're doing this, that, and the other, which it always cracked me up as a player to go over and watch another player and suck on oxygen. I never in my career went over to the oxygen tank and sucked on the oxygen because your body can only process so much oxygen, and that's what your body's made for. It's a placebo. That's what it is. I honestly think that. I think if you talk to any doctor, they would tell you the same thing. It's a placebo. But getting back to our offense, we finally started using players that we don't normally use, and it helped us. And my concern whenever Dan started taking over play calling is that he starts focusing too much on that, and it affects the game. And I did it affect it today? Maybe an offensive coordinator would have figured out to go, to use players that we haven't used that much in the past sooner. But we did get it figured out. He put us back into the fight because we ended the game, with 2 touchdowns, and you can't say controversial third touchdown, but the final 3 drives of the game, it showed that the offense finally had a little spark.
Yeah.
So which is a plus, but it's not going to help you achieve a seat at the table at the end of the season to get into the playoffs.
Right. And the way this Lions offense, not till, I guess too little, too late, a day late, dollar short type of thing, really got into, I hate to use the term rhythm, but looked like, to your point, having a spark, was all through the air. There was 0 rushing attack. Now, obviously, time and score is going to contribute to that. But we keep getting this comment, and I think it's an interesting discussion point. I'll go with Lewis of the Lion here, that Dan had to take the field goal early in the game. While we're talking offense, the Lions do get it inside, first and goal, and are unable to punch it in early in the game. A couple of, this is always a discussion with this team going for it or taking the points. They haven't been nearly as good on fourth down this season than in years past. And obviously that plays a huge factor in these one-score games. Early in the game, were you yelling at the TV, take the points, or were you okay with the call to go for it there?
No, look, you have to know your personnel. And I know Dan wants to put a ton of trust in them, and he does. He trusts them, and they feel that, but they just have not been producing. And as a game manager, that's where you have to put your foot down and be like, okay, this is the kind of game it's going to be today. Let's go ahead and take the points. Now, hindsight's always 20/20. And you can second guess, and you can call me a Monday morning quarterback. You can call me whatever. It does not bother me at all. If they would have put the ball in the end zone, that would have set the tone a lot earlier, but they didn't. So you lose the ball on downs, down at the goal line. You're probably going to look back. You're going to look at the stat sheet, and you're going to look back on that particular drive, say, doggone it, I wish I would have taken the points, and kick the field goal and move on from there, because it would have been a 3-3 game, because we started out with the ball. We had a 3-and-out to start the game. They drive down. Defense was bend, don't break. They gave up a 59-yard field goal. Okay, that's I can, if Pittsburgh was going to make their living off of making 59-yard field goals, then I'd feel pretty good about today. So we get the ball back, and then we drive the ball down the field, and we give it up on downs. I feel better with points on the board, no matter how you get them at the beginning, and just tie the score up 3-3. Okay, you know what? We're back to 0-0. Let's see who throws the next haymaker, and that's what I would have been looking for. But that's not in Dan's mentality. But at the same time, you have to look out for the best interest of your team, and you look at the last month of games leading up to this game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and your defense has been getting gassed, meaning getting tired, because they have not been able to get off the field on third down or fourth down. They have not been able to get off the field in the last two downs of a series. Teams have been converting on them. So you want to take as many points as you can get that are feasible, and you have to have a feel for how the Pittsburgh defense was playing you at the time. And at that time, I think I would have kicked a field goal.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Other notes I took on the offensive side, you got Ferkner, the tight end, making a couple of catches. If we're cherry picking a few notes here down the stretch, Tesla with the touchdown in traffic. Had he made 2 touchdown grabs in traffic, he'd been the hero. Gets 2 hands on the ball. That last one, and I don't remember if I think it was Romo that said, hey, on third and whatever it is, 9 and 10, 11 from third and goal, like those are the type of balls that Goff has to throw and catches you have to make. And, it's not a drop. The defense was there, but man, if he squeezes that, there I go, pointing out the obvious, but his first one was in a lot of traffic. So young kid, rookie, growing, obviously this is probably going to weigh on him, but you need him, and you need him to bounce back, because even though, I would call it kind of a roller coaster season in his rookie year, if you look at the body of the work over the course of his rookie season, sure, there's lots of room for improvement, but there's also some significant plays he made, some significant notes to check in and say, hey, here's a 3rd round pick that we're going to need to help us.
Yeah, that pick is going to bear fruit down the road, and it may even be in these last 2 games. I thought the defensive back that went against Tesla on the last throw, whenever Goff was able to put that ball up there and only Tesla was able to go up and get his hands on the ball. I thought the defensive back made a fabulous play on it.
Mm-hmm.
And, what you would like to see is him just squeeze it with both hands.
Right. Because he kind of double caught it.
Yeah. He double clutched on the catch, and you need to catch that ball clean. And normally he has in those types of situations. But I think that pick is going, like I said, it's going to bear fruit down the road, and you hope it shows up sooner rather than later, just because of the situations that we're running into now with the team health. But and it was good to see Khalif Raymond get involved in the offense. And you brought up Ferkser. He went 4 for 4. Four throws to him and 4 catches, so for 40 yards. So good for him. And then I made a note here, and I thought it was very interesting because we've talked about this in past weeks. Whenever Laporta went down, so you have Montgomery, you have Gibbs in the backfield. Did you happen to notice how Pittsburgh used Gainwell and Warren in the game?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been talking about, is move Gibbs around.
Yeah.
And give him the ball different ways. Put him out on routes.
Yeah.
Get him short area routes, long routes, and then run him the jet sweep that they opened up with on a couple, or I know on one for sure. I mean, they ended up gaining 10 yards somewhere around there.
Yeah, an easy cherry picking note stat wise is Gainwell was the Steelers' leading receiver today, and I know he had the big bomb that one play like that really contributes to it. But to your point, the multitude of ways he's used in an offensive game plan, that skill set is, you could make the argument Gibbs' skill set is much better than Gainwell's. And if utilizing him in new and creative ways, the Cowboys game is an example, and the Steelers defense a little bit tougher than the Cowboys defense, but the same concept, certainly a factor in this one.
Yeah. Then you go and look at the stat line. I mean, just look at the stat line. I'm just talking about rushing. Montgomery was the leading rusher in the game. Do you remember him playing?
Not a lot of carries.
No, exactly. He had 4. 4. Gibbs had 7, but Gibbs was in the game more, obviously. But he had the Montgomery ended up having the one long gain of 17 yards, but that's all you heard from him. It was a quiet game for the first 8 drives from the offense. You just didn't hear much from him. You obviously didn't hear anything from him in the third quarter because they were over on the bench. But another thing that needs to be addressed is just the shuffling of the deck in the offensive line, especially at center today. We went through 3 guys. I was watching that. I was just like, holy cow.
It's like
every time. Yeah, because Glasgow didn't dress, but every time you turned around, they showed Goff on the sidelines. He was taking practice snaps from somebody else. Like, what are we doing? We're just, I understand the grit. I understand the next man up, but they took that to a whole nother level. That was crazy.
Yep, it absolutely was. All right, defensive deep dive, and then final thoughts as we wrap up our live show right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the Locked On Lions Squad Show. This episode of the Locked On Lions Squad Show is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels a little bit different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel, lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines as they adjust instantly. Oh, and don't even get me started on the player props updates as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. The live bets on FanDuel. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Here we go. Defensive deep dive as the Lions lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This one might be even more painful than the offensive deep dive. As always, invite you to get your comments in on the live show. And if you miss the live show, audio only version available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check out Locked On Lions with Matt Derry as well. And maybe here I'm gonna throw a little curveball, Bradford Banta, because
All right.
I feel like this point in the program.
I want to see how much break you got in your curve here, bro.
Yeah, there we go. This is a little 12-6 here from today's game. Well, a couple of them, but let's start with Aiden Hutchinson. He now has more than 10 sacks this season. This is from Lions PR. First player in franchise history to log multiple 10-sack seasons through the first 4 years of a career. He's only the 5th player in team history to log multiple 10-sack seasons. There you go. That's what we're paying him the big bucks for, and he was disruptive in that first half. How's that curveball for you?
He was, but you look at ball in hand time for Aaron Rodgers whenever he would drop back. I'm willing to bet it was under 2 seconds because he would just get that ball out so quickly. Anytime he held on to the ball, he was getting pressured. Now, they have had their trouble with their offensive line, talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think the Detroit Lions did a good job of taking care of it, but they were out on the field for, the Steelers ended up having the ball for 34 minutes. And, it's a tried and true theory that whoever wins in the trenches is more than likely going to win the game. And that's where Pittsburgh won this game today. They just kept leaning on the Detroit Lions defensive line time and time again and just keeping them out on the field. And with the Pittsburgh Steelers converting on 3rd and 4th down, because, just looking at the stat sheet here, they were, for 3rd and 4th down, they were 10 of 18 on 3rd and 4th down combined. They were 10 of 18. And, you're looking at what, 55? God, I can't do the math right now, but right around 55%. And at some point, you just have to draw the line. And what Rodgers was doing was just finding the weak point in the defensive secondary and just taking advantage of that. But also to, you can say to his credit or to his detriment, Calvin Shepard also called probably a little bit more zone than what he normally calls during the games. Why? Because it's no longer the Legion of Whom. It's you're going and finding players at a Sister of the Poor house is what you're doing now. So you're digging for guys because everybody has picked a lot of the top players, from other people's practice squads, or even some guys don't even want to leave the practice squad to go to other teams. You have a choice as a player. If you get selected to come to an active roster, you're like, nah, I'm okay. You know what? I'll just stay here and take my chances here. So, but now you're talking about guys that are out on the street, and these guys are out on the street for a reason. It's not because they can play at a top level. No, it's that they can play at a top level. And more power to you if you're able to put on a helmet from one of the 32 teams and go out and play on, well, I mean, it seems like we're playing 4 or 5 days a week now, but let's just say Sunday, just in general. So, but to play in the NFL, how about we go with that?
There you go.
To play in the NFL. But I just keep going back to it and I harp on it. And it's just getting off the field on 3rd and 4th down. And that's where we have been running into trouble all year long. And I think because of the injuries that we've had in the secondary and that dictating how Kelvin Shepherd is calling the game because of what he has been presented with personnel-wise, it kind of took him a little bit out of what he believes in. And I wouldn't say it puts him in an uncomfortable territory, but I know he'd like to be a lot more aggressive than what he is. But Aaron Rodgers did nothing but pick us apart. Now, he ended up he was, let's call it 66% on the day. And for all intents and purposes, believe it or not, Goff is rated higher than he was for the game. That you're just like, holy cow. After watching some of the passes that I saw Jared throw, that just kind of simply amazes me whenever I look at the QB rating.
Yeah.
And you look at it and you're like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
even as Goff's biggest apologist, there was a couple of ducks that sailed, and I was like, is that for real? And some interceptions that could have been had by the Steelers that would have made this not even close in the 4th quarter.
But oh gosh, I know it was almost successive throws, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was in that same drive where it went in and out of the Steelers' hands, and you're like, by the same guy.
Yep.
And you were just like, whoa, okay. So yeah. But I don't know. I just think that the Steelers had a good game plan. They came in and executed. They wanted to hold on to the ball as long as they could. They took advantage of the situations that were given to them, and you have to give credit where credit's due. And Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback. There's a reason he has spent half of his life in this league, which is a fact.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He spent half of his life in this league, and there's a reason for that because he is good. We just happen to experience it more than most just because he was in the NFC North with the Green Bay Packers for so long. And then it became, he's, go to the Jets and now with the Steelers. Those are the only 3 that he's been with, that to best of my recollection. Okay.
Yeah, the last note for our defensive time here, I think you said it perfectly that the Lions, what do you know, a Thursday midweek game. So we'll be right back at it for our preview of the Minnesota Vikings on Tuesday. And JJ McCarthy leaves the game today. The Vikings win 16-13. And again, I feel like I try to overly proactively get out in front of any of the comments, and that's just a losing proposition anyway. So I'm just going to say it. The Lions aren't mathematically eliminated. It starts with beating the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday on Christmas. And with McCarthy's status unknown, obviously a team that put up all of 16 points against the Giants isn't exactly the offensive prowess that, is going to light up the scoreboard. But then again, it's the National Football
League. Look how we did against the Giants.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay. So, but that's just one other note there. And with that said, a little housekeeping. We'll do a show on Tuesday, and then we'll do our post-game show on Friday, not on the actual Christmas holiday. Lockdown doesn't pay us that holiday pay, Bradford Banta. So
no time and a half. Come on,
yeah,
we had it written in.
We got to get better agents when it comes to time and a half pay.
Tell me about
it. Absolutely. All right. Final thoughts coming up next. Don't go anywhere. It's the Locked On Lions Squad Show. Quick break, wrapping it up as Jake Riepma, Bradford Banta, and I bring you home after a disappointing loss. Lions fall to 8-7 on the season, 5-3 at home, and even some of those wins, you could say at Ford Field, they just haven't really looked their best. And at the end of the day, it's about getting a win. But, the Minnesota loss after the bye week still is a head scratcher. The obviously this loss here and the loss on Thanksgiving are 3 unexpected blemishes. Now, I think the Packers are obviously a really good team. They choked that one against the Bears last night. Did you watch that one?
How about that game? How about that game?
As a special teams guy who has been on the hands team, I know it's a challenging job, but you're out there to retrieve the ball. My goodness. There's a reason onside kicks are 8% or worse, Bradford Banta. Were you pulling, or I guess you weren't pulling your hair out. No, respectfully, I say that, of course. But as a special teams guy,
yeah, right here. Okay. Exactly. Okay. No, from what I saw, you have to charge the ball.
Yeah.
And he gave up ground.
Right. He let the ball play him.
Yeah, he let the ball play him. I mean, it's oblong for a reason. It's going to take funny bounces, and that's what it ended up doing. But whenever the ball is kicked, was it Dobbs?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. It was a receiver that wears the Guardian cap, and I'm just going to automatically associate that with Dobbs. Fair or unfair.
Right. Exactly. But they were it's just you charge the ball. That's all you do. And he would if he would have charged the ball, he would have ended up catching that thing in his chest. You just cradle it, you get down in the fetal position, turn your back towards the coverage team, and away you go. Game over. So, but crazy ending with the final 2 touchdowns.
It absolutely was. But the Lions will have the Bears the final week of the regular season. Of course, up next, the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas. The Packers beat up in that game as well. Jordan Love's status a little bit uncertain. No Micah Parsons. So it always is just a big, huge question mark. So we know how things go when I start predicting things. But last thing, because we've gotten a lot of comments on it in our final segments here, Jalen Ramsey was the defensive back defending Amon-Ra St. Brown on that last play in which Amon-Ra St. Brown was whistled for the pass interference. Now, again, this is one of those things we both put our thoughts and the parameters of the argument up front. I'm not saying it shouldn't have been called, but Jalen Ramsey has made his living in this league as one of the most physical cornerbacks in all of the National Football League.
Yeah.
Do we think, and listen, again, I think it was offensive pass interference, but I saw some comments that maybe Ramsey sold it a little bit, which is a risky play because you don't see offensive pass interference called often, but he got the call. And is there, obviously in basketball, the star players sometimes get the call. Ramsey being a star player, is that part of it? And it's the topic that gets discussed at the end of the post-game show because it's really not that important, but still I'm curious your opinion.
First off, I think it was offensive pass interference. You see contact and you see extension of the arms by Amon-Ra. So what he did is the definition of offensive pass interference. Being the competitor that I think Jalen Ramsey is, I would say that Amon-Ra probably caught him just a little bit off kilter, a little bit, or off balance is a better word to use. And it happens to the best of them because Jalen Ramsey is an aggressive corner, with his play and with his mouth. So he does a great job with both of them. Yeah. And it probably it caught him a little bit off balance. But it was offensive pass interference, and I'm willing to bet that Amon-Ra was just said the heck with it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see if I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm betting that they're not going to call it because of the situation in the game. And it ended up coming up 7, and so he crapped out, and they threw the flag, and it was the correct call. But he tried to make lemonade out of the lemons that he was given, and just to have the wherewithal whenever you're getting tackled to flip the ball to the next available player who happened to be Goff running his way, and Goff then launches himself over the goal line for a supposed touchdown. Hey, I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was like some backyard football stuff. That was awesome.
It totally was. I love
that play stands and the Lions win on that. I mean, you're looking at like a all-time highlight reel that's played for years and years and years, like the most infamous game-winning Jared Goff heave into the end zone off the lateral. Like you can't even write a script crazier than that.
Yeah. So let's take two opposite ends of the spectrum. And you're talking about ending a game on a play like that. Let's say, I know it wasn't a touchdown, but let's say it ended up being a touchdown and they won the game that way. All right. Then so much action, so much going on, and it's a Sunday afternoon game. It would have been better if it would have been a Monday night game, because the Thursday game with the Seattle Seahawks, and then with the 2-point conversion with the ball laying on the ground, and Zach Charbonnet just walks over there, picks the ball up, and then he's awarded 2 points.
Yeah.
You're just like, holy cow. So it's crazy. And you're talking December football in the NFL, and you never know what's going to happen, because you never know what team is going to show up that week.
Yep. And who's the war of attrition is a part of it. There's so many different factors. And I did want to acknowledge a couple of comments that I agree with. The Tesla offensive pass interference, I think, is more of the costly mistake. He's a rookie. He's going to learn from it, because Amon-Ra beats his defender so badly. He didn't need the obstruction at all. And Goff dots that. That's like fish in a barrel for those two. So that's the one. As I've got both of them playing on my phone on loop and slow motion, and I watched both of them. I'm going to say Ramsey might have sold it a little bit, still offensive pass interference, but I'm also going to add that Tesla's offensive PI is the one that we're going to be replaying in my head over and over tonight.
Yeah, but it was an OPI, because if you're going to call that one, then you got to call the one against Darnell Washington whenever Metcalf. Whenever Metcalf was wide open in the end zone, and he was it with Reed. Reed got sucked into Washington's belly, and I think he rolled around in there a few times, and then finally Washington kind of flexed his stomach muscles, and he burst out of there. So you talk about a big boy. Holy cow.
Darnell Washington. Oh my gosh. On that fumble, I was thinking big tree fall hard the whole time, because that poor dude, man, like that was like a tree tumbling in the forest, and he fumbled inside the 10 there.
Boy, no doubt. So, but it was, it definitely, I'd say an entertaining 15. No, I'd go with 8 minutes of football to watch today. So
Yep, that's how we'll wrap it up tonight. Lions fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers 29-24. They fall to 8-7. The playoff hopes are evaporating fast. They are bleak at best. We'll go with that. And just as
6%, somewhere around there.
The old AI machine. There was an article in The Athletic that estimated between 6 and 16%.
Okay.
I think maybe as I can only imagine that those numbers will fluctuate a little bit as lines start to come out for the other games that the Lions need help with, just in terms of who's available and things of that nature. I think the Niners have a legitimate shot to beat the Bears Monday night or Sunday night. That's a Sunday night game, but point being a primetime game at Levi Stadium. And fun fact, I'm going to be at that one. I'll do some live scouting for us, guys.
All right.
So I'll take it all in. But this is, even though it was not the result we were hoping for, a fun show with Bradford Banta. Just the schedule reminder: Tuesday live show with the Thursday game, Tuesday preview, and then a Friday post game show. Bradford Banta and yours truly. Any final thoughts, my friend?
You hate to say it, but you want to finish strong.
There it is.
Anytime, as a former player and as a former coach, you want to win every game that you go into. And does it happen every time? No, it doesn't. But you go back, you just try to build momentum, and you try to improve. You have to look yourself in the mirror. What can I do to improve today? Each play. How can I get better?
Yep.
And you got to think outside the box sometimes. And that's where the Lions are right now.
Yep. And you can't cheat the game. You can't cheat the game. You can't cheat yourself. And guys make it to the highest level with that mentality. So regardless of the way it plays out. That's got to be at the top of mind there. But for Bradford Banta, my name is Jake Riepma. Thanks so much for watching our live instant post-game reaction on the #1 sports podcast platform, the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you like today's show. Tell a friend about it. And, oh, yeah, check out Locked On Lions, The Daily Show with Matt Derry. And we will be back on Tuesday. Good night, everyone.